What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home here at fakepigskin.com. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the NFC Win Totals is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? I'm ready to dive into these NFC teams as this is the conference of my Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, if you missed it, we talked about the AFC and my Tennessee Titans division to win, not to be win. That doesn't make sense.
To be won.
To be won, that would make a lot more sense. Be really good if I could speak. We've been recording these for a while, so our words are becoming a lot harder to organize.
Yes.
If you are enjoying what we're doing, make sure you mash that thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you turn on the bell notification. In the comments below, let us know your favorite NFC win total, and who do you like, over, under, whatever, maybe.
And feel free to start up a nice little debate over how crappy our picks are.
Yes. Once again, Brian and I, despite knowing that the under is usually the best play, decided that the over was where we would spend all of our time. So 7 of our 8 picks go to the over. Overs are more fun. That's why we
of course.
So yes, this is the NFC win totals, and we'll start right down by me with the San Francisco 49ers over 10.5 at plus money, Brian Twining.
I don't really see how this team is placed in plus money with over 10.5 victories. I mean, to get to that 11 number. Yeah. I know they struggled last season, but that was with a team that was basically filled with replacement players and, per se, with how many injuries they sustained throughout the season. I think went through 3 quarterbacks again. The running backs were never fully healthy. That backfield rotation was a constant revolving door. All the wide receivers were hurt on a consistent basis.
They lost George Kittle for a significant part. They didn't have Nick Bosa for almost the whole season. They lost Richard Sherman for over a month. They are getting their best defensive player and arguably one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in all of the league back in Nick Bosa. They are going to get, in theory, consistent quarterback play from either Jimmy Garoppolo and or Trey Lance. I guess the argument you make is the Rams are better, Arizona's better, Seattle's better, and it cost the Niners a win or two, and that cost them the win. But as you can see from my pick, I am right on board with you. I think this bet makes way too much sense. If they are healthy, if they I think even if they go Trey Lance and they lean on the running game, as you mentioned with the running backs, it was a question mark, but they brought in, my boy Trey Sermon from Ohio State to kind of go with Raheem Mostert, to go with some of the other pieces. They have about 6 or 7 guys that could, in theory, see 10 to 15 snaps or 10 to 15 carries in a game. We'll see which ones actually make the roster, which ones are actually there, kind of when the season comes to a head. But the defense should be fine. I'm always worried about that secondary, but they've done some stuff to address it. We'll see what they can do. I think the pass rush is incredible. I think the linebackers are incredible. Having Nick Bosa and Fred Warner healthy for 16 games is going to make the opposition's life a living hell. And Brandon Ayuk healthy, George Kittle healthy, Debo healthy. Like I don't know. I'm happy to take the plus money and go for 11 or 12 or 13 wins.
Yes, please. And looking at their schedule as well, this team doesn't play a road game against a team who had a winning record last year until week 13 at Seattle. And the only other time they do that out of division or out of conference, out of division and out of conference, is week 16 at Tennessee. So their schedule is very loaded in terms of good opponents, like teams that they should beat with getting these pieces back. They should start out the year pretty good. I mean, they get Detroit and Philly on the road, and then they get home games against Green Bay and Seattle, which if we got fans back in the stands, we all know how rocking that Santa Clara area can be for this 49ers team. The number with the plus money here is just too good to pass up, and it's one of my favorite bets in terms of win totals.
Bang, bang, Niner gang. Let's go to your next pick, since we both hit on that one, and that is the Minnesota Vikings over 9 at plus 125.
The potential of Aaron Rodgers leaving Green Bay, I think, is enough for me to think that Minnesota should win 11 games
You
this
do know
season.
that Kirk Cousins is still their quarterback, however.
But that's okay. I know they 7-9 last year. They underperformed. Kirk Cousins had a lot of games where he probably could have played a lot better, but I mean, this team is set up to kind of be better than what they were last year. And with that extra game, Detroit, we don't know what we're going to see out of them with the wholesale changes that we saw them do. Chicago, we don't know which quarterback they're going to be playing. And I mean, if they're playing Justin Fields over Andy Dalton, yeah, he offers much more athletic ability and all that stuff, but he is a rookie. Minnesota made some moves on the defensive side of the ball that should help them in the passing game, adding Mackenzie Alexander, Patrick Peterson, and Xavier Woods to that defensive backfield. And they added Dalvin Tomlinson and Stephen Weatherly and Nick Vigil to help that front seven. So the Minnesota Vikings defense should get back to being closer to what we saw at the beginning stages of Mike Zimmer's tenure there with the offense of Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Irv Smith now taking over for Kyle Rudolph. And yes, it's Kirk Cousins, but I think Minnesota should at least push on this 9 number.
Yeah, I think as long as their defense is solid, I think they'll be right there. I actually just made a quick update, but the Chicago Bears were going to be one of my picks. They're no longer one of my picks, but I think the Chicago, I think the Bears over is absolutely in play, and that
what are they 8 right now?
7.5. So I think they can get to 8 or 9 wins with that defense.
Yes.
So that would be my concern, I think. But we talked about this on the AFC show, how the AFC North was able to have 3 teams that were kind of double-digit wins, basically, because the 4th team was so bad, and Detroit could be like 0-17, 1-16, 2-15, something like that, and that could give each of these teams a couple wins, which puts them on the path to Bears winning 8 or 9, the Vikings winning 10, and then maybe the Packers, assuming Rodgers is there, 10, 11, 12, whatever they're.
I mean, that is unless Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions just start like cannibalizing.
Well, I mean, they might just start chewing on people's knees and doing whatever they do. Dan Campbell, that guy, man, we saw it once with Miami. I'm pretty surprised we're doing it again, but this is an organization that has gone with Jim Caldwell and Jim Schwartz, and they have an interesting track record of head coaches. Brian, the Bears are out. They did not make my final 4. They would have been my 5th if I had to. The team that replaced them, the Los Angeles Rams, and the under of 10.5 wins, -129. I know Stafford is there and Goff is gone. I know that this team should be really interesting. Obviously made a nice run last year. Cam Akers is good. The defense has pieces. I still have many questions. I don't know that from what the Rams do that Matthew Stafford is a tremendous upgrade over Jared Goff. I think, and there's a chance that he deals with injuries again, misses a big chunk of the season. I just
got John Wolford.
Yeah, the Wolford wagon could be running up and down the field for sure. And obviously they get an extra game to help kind of get to that 11 wins. But I think at best this is a 9-8, 10-7 kind of team. And I will take the under with that. And I think they have a chance to be, even worse than that for sure. So, even with the juice at -129, I like the Rams to go under.
Yeah, that's an interesting selection because I actually was contemplating going with the over with the Rams, but felt very similar to what you're talking about. Like there's so much uncertainty with what we're going to see out of this team that it's a little too risky, knowing that there's so many diverse outcomes for this team. Losing a few pieces on the defensive side of the ball, losing their defensive coordinator who took a head coaching job. So we're going to see some different kind of schemes here. So it'll be interesting, especially me liking San Francisco kind of takes LA and puts them a little bit lower in terms of where I think they could get to, because I think San Francisco is that next team that competes with Seattle for the division. Yeah. And so with Arizona possibly taking a step.
Right. So that's the thing is like all these teams aren't going to win a bunch of games. And maybe there's always like, I feel like there's more out paths to them winning 10 games or less than there are to like everything I feel like would have to go right. The Niners have to deal with some injuries, and Arizona would have to falter for them to get to 11, 12, 13 wins in order to get the over. So I feel like it's a much, much more clear path to them getting to the under, even in a sort of solid season where they win maybe 9 or 10 games. So that's where my head's at. Let's shift back to the East Coast and talk about the Tampa Bay Bucks over 11.5 at minus 125. Are you kidding me? I know this team won the Super Bowl, but this feels aggressive.
I don't normally go this aggressive. I always kind of avoid these numbers and normally smash the unders on these. But in terms of just kind of the hierarchy of the NFC, I don't see any team that is as good as Tampa Bay is and gets as kind of beneficial of schedule as they do within their division. I mean, I know New Orleans, they're going to have a good defense still, but it's either famous Jameis or Taysom Hill show there, which, I mean, what are we really going to see out of that? You know, we know the mistakes that Winston makes, and then Taysom Hill, what is that offense really going to look like? Atlanta, I know they made pieces, they made some changes, but if they ship Julio Jones out of town, that just takes away another weapon that they could compete with this offense. And then Carolina, even though we're both kind of up on them, like we think that they're trending in the right direction with Sam Darnold and stuff, their defense is still going to be probably caca. And I mean, Tampa Bay is returning everybody, literally every single player from the Super Bowl.
It feels like literally everything went right for them last year, and they really found their stride as the season went along. And
hey, man, I learned my lesson.
Yeah, I'm going back to the well. Like if I was betting this, I would happily bet the under because I
just can't bet against Tom Brady anymore. That's 11, it. I'll never bet against him.
11-6, 10-7 feels very realistic for this team, and I will take that. But you know, I've bet dumb bets before, and I'll do them again. So I may look real dumb come season's end, but I would be fading the Bucks.
They won their last 8 games last year by pretty decisively, the majority of them. So
they went into Lambeau, kicked the crap out of the Packers, and they did it again in the playoffs. They were awesome. Like I don't know why I keep doing it, but I don't know. Brian, I may sound like a broken record. Arizona Cardinals under 8 plus 110.
Man, you hate Cliff Kingsbury.
I don't love him. No, I think the Arizona Cardinals are really fun to watch. I think they're going to be fantastic for fantasy football.
They're like the poor man's Rams.
Yes, they're like who is
Washington. That's who it was.
No, we were just talking about a team that I was like, oh, they're like the NFC or AFC version of the, I don't know. I can't remember. Anyways, Cardinals, tons of fun. Offense, super fun. Running a lot of plays. Kyler Murray is going to be great. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be great. Chase Edmonds is going to be somebody that I'm going to rank a hell of a lot higher than most people. I think his offense is going to be fun. I think the defense has question marks. They've done some moves, but as much as I like, Chandler Jones is awesome. But JJ Watt,
what does he bring to the table?
He's a great person. He's done some incredible things over the course of his career. This is an injury guy. They lost Patrick Peterson. Like I just don't see it on the defensive side of the ball. And I think their offense, like I said, is going to be incredibly fun, incredibly interesting. I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody that I really should make sure we hit on. Where's Arizona? This is the AFC.
I mean, they got AJ Green and James Conner, but
right. Yeah, exactly. Like what are we doing? Like this is like this is like my all-star team from like 2014, 2016, something like that.
That's why I said they do kind of remind me of what the Rams did a couple years ago, just signing a bunch of big names guys, but that actually worked out as they made it to the Super Bowl. I think this is going to go more along the lines of what Washington did back in the late 90s, signing Deion Sanders, Dana Stubblefield, Bruce
Albert
Smith.
Hainsworth.
Yes, all those guys. And they just had all these high-priced players who were well past their prime, and it was more for name value. And they thought they could just – they literally think this is Madden, and it's not a real NFL game.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, too, is like I think San Francisco is awesome. I think Seattle is going to be really good. And as much as the Rams and the Cardinals are going to be fun, I think they're just going to go both slightly under. I think Arizona wins 6 or 7. I think the Rams win 8 or 9, maybe 10, and then the Niners and the Seahawks compete for the crown at 11 or 12 wins. And I think that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And that's where my head is at with this division. So when I saw the plus money at the under 8, I thought that was the move. If you find over at FTN, you might be able to find an 8.5, which you may have to lay a little more juice. Let's see, here we go. Nope, they're all 8s. But yeah, if you can find 8.5, you may feel a little bit better about that, because then even if they go 8 and 9, you don't hate it. But I like the under. I think at plus money it makes too much sense, and I will be betting this with real dollars.
Yeah, and looking at the back half of their schedule, 6 of their last 7 games are against teams who should be competing for playoff position here. You got Seattle twice, Chicago on December 5th. They get the Rams. They play Detroit. Okay, that's a gimme. But then they host Indianapolis, go to Dallas in week 17, and then they host Seattle in week 18. So they got a really tough end of the road here.
Yeah. So they'll have to get, 4, 5, 6 wins early and then try and hang on to get that 9 or 10. So I don't know. We'll see. I could look real dumb. The Niners could be injury riddled and Arizona jumps up and takes it, but I just don't see it happening.
I just can't show this show to my wife because she's a Cardinals fan. So we'll just.
Hey, they're going to be fun to watch. Larry Fitzgerald's going to look great in the owner's box for his game, and we'll go from there. Let's talk about your final play. The Washington football team over 8 minus 141. A little bit of juice, but I think absolutely on board with this call. Talk to me about the football team.
Yeah, I think this number is set way too low, knowing that, Ryan Fitzpatrick is a journeyman quarterback who's not the greatest. Nobody's going to say that he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but in terms of what he brings to this offense that they haven't seen in the last 2 to 3 years, I think that kind of pushes them even further into the conversation of 9 wins, 10 wins, seeing how good this defense was last year. And it's not like they lost much. They actually added pieces to the offense to make it more explosive, with Curtis Samuel joining fellow Buckeye Terry McLaurin out there on the outside. And we all know Ryan Fitzmagic loves to sling the ball. And they still got Antonio Gibson coming into his 2nd year. So we'll get to see a little more of him as they kind of eased him into the backfield rotation. I just don't see how this team doesn't get to 9 wins with the Giants, who, the Giants could take a step. I kind of liked what they were doing. They've made some nice moves, but Dallas's defense is still going to be suspect, and Washington was able to slow other teams with really good offenses down last year. And then you have Philadelphia, who we don't really know what's happening with them. So even if they're around 500, I think 8 is easily attainable, and I think it's more along the lines of 9 or 10 for Washington.
Yeah, I like this call quite a bit, and I would actually be looking for 8.5 if I could find it. If assuming the juice isn't too bad, if I can get you maybe closer to plus even money or maybe even plus money. The defense is sick. Chase Young, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Montez Sweat. That team's going to feast. Really makes things easy for their second and third level. Offensively, they're going to be a lot of fun. As you mentioned, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Kelvin Harmon. They drafted Daimi Brown. Antonio Gandy Golden is somebody I kind of liked last year. They're going to need solid quarterback play, but as long as Fitzmagic isn't throwing 37 interceptions, I think he'll be fine. And Antonio Gibson could be good. And, they have a lot of pieces that I think they'll be super solid. And as you mentioned, like the NFC East is always weird. Like this, they could be the bottom feeder, and that could cause them to go, 7 and 10 or whatever. But with the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, like they all have things that make you go, they could be good, but they also have things that go, this could get really ugly and kind of go lopsided too. So, I like this call quite a bit.
Well, and then looking at their schedule too, their last 5 games are all intra-division games. I mean, they played Dallas at Philly, at Dallas, Philly, at New York to end the season. So it's all familiar foes that even if they're, 4 and what would they be at that time? 4 and 11 going, or 4 and 8, whatever, going into that last stretch right there. They could easily run off 5 straight victories against divisional opponents because of the familiarity against those teams.
The other concern is that at that point they're playing some garbage players to try and lock up that higher pick to get a quarterback or something. But yeah,
But
no,
they only really play 2 teams on the road who are any good. They play at Buffalo and then at Green Bay in Week 7, who may be without Aaron Rodgers. So
yeah. All right, Brian, it's time. Carolina Panthers over 7.5. Boom, 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 boom. I mentioned it on the other show. There was a MVP bet I made for the NFC. No, MVP bet I made for the AFC. You have to listen to the AFC show to see who I bet over there. NFC, I bet Sam Darnold to win the football MVP at 90-1. 90-1.
He obviously called the Ghostbusters.
This is yes, we got rid of the ghost. We're good. He got away from Adam
Gase.
Who else? You know what other quarterback that has potential that finally got away from Adam Gase that has been freaking awesome since getting away from Adam Gase? His name
very
is
true.
Ryan Tannehill, who's basically been a notch below Patrick Mahomes and company in terms of his production since joining the Titans. But that's neither here nor there. I'm banking on DJ Moore being awesome. I'm banking on Joe Brady fixing Sam Darnold. Joe Brady is awesome. Joe Burrow was basically a 6th-round running quarterback who Joe Brady got in there, opened things up, did things that worked really well for his quarterback rather than just doing what he felt like he should do. Go figure. And fix the offense. And it was awesome. And Matt Rule's got some pieces, and Christian McCaffrey's still there. And there's a lot to like about this team. And I think 8 or 9 wins is very much in the cards. You mentioned, we're talking about the Bucs. Who's going to beat them? I think Carolina could be better. I don't think they're going to beat them in the division in terms of winning the division, but I think they'll be competitive. I think they can beat Carolina. If New Orleans really takes a step back, this team could be the second best team in the NFC East or NFC South. I like a lot of
so.
Their defense, that will be the question mark. But I'm not asking them to go 12-5 or 13-4. I'm asking them to win 8 games in a 17-game season.
It's attainable, especially knowing that we get this 17-game schedule, which is throwing me off, by the way, trying to extrapolate these numbers. But they sure as hell better get close to that 8 mark before the end of the season, because 4 of their last 5 games are against playoff teams from last year: at Buffalo, Tampa, at New Orleans, at Tampa. So this win total will basically be decided before their bye week in week 13. So if they are going to get there, we're looking at a team that's in playoff contention from the get-go.
I think they can absolutely be that team. Brian, what is your favorite bet for the NFC this season?
I think for me, with the least amount of possibly of it not happening, I think it's got to be Minnesota over 9 wins at plus 125.
Wow.
Yes, I think
of the ones you established, I think that would
yours going to be Washington.
No,
that's your least favorite.
Yeah, I don't like that. That one scares me because I think if Green Bay is Aaron Rodgers, that could be obviously a really good team. I think I think the Bears take a 2 step forward. 10. As you mentioned with the 17 games, maybe that's 10-7. But yeah,
I like the fact that assuming we get even half capacity stadiums, the home field advantage that is afforded to a team like Minnesota, I think is at least a half a point in terms of point spreads. I think you're going to see the lines kind of indicate that this year too. You're going to see the lines get a little bit closer. And I think Minnesota, in those home games that they lost last year, I don't think they lose those games this year with the home field advantage. So I like the Vikings probably the best out of my picks.
Mine would be the Rams, and that's funny because it's the one I put in last. But yeah, I think that one feels the safest, most easily reliable. Arizona, I could see winning 9 games and making it a little frustrating. Obviously, I love the Niners. I think they could easily win 11 games.
But that division is.
But that division is sick, and they lose both games to Seattle, and they go 10-7, and or they're 10-6, and they can't win or loss in their week 17 game doesn't mean anything.
Exactly.
So then they sit there, some guys, and kind of let that game go by. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think if I'm going to try and find a place where I can parlay a Niners over with the Rams under, and maybe even throw in Arizona to get a little crazy, but that could be fun. As I mentioned, if you like this video, go check out our AFC video. We also dove into some quarterbacks, which will be coming soon or is already up, depending on when you're watching it. We also do NASCAR each and every week. If you enjoy betting and or DFS on NASCAR, check that out. Brian and I will be back with more betting content, more fantasy content. If you're liking what we're doing, make sure you mash that subscribe, turn on the bell notification. It takes you 3 seconds. It makes a big world of difference for us. And in the comments, let us know your favorite over or under for the NFC. I'm very curious to see what you guys like, who you may be on board with. Tell Brian and I where we misstepped. It could be all of our picks. It could be none of our picks, whatever it may be. Let us know in the comments what you think. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert, and we'll talk to you guys next time.